Cuba commemorates 9 years since the passing of the commander-in-chief of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro. The electoral silence period is underway in Honduras ahead of the November 30th general elections. And in Palestine, almost 400 violations of the October 10th ceasefire have been reported in Gaza, while Israel continues to push past the agreed-upon yellow line. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We'll begin with the news. Cuba commemorates 9 years since the passing of the commander-in-chief of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro. Cubans remember Commander Fidel Castro as the man who left a legacy in Cuba and around the world for his critical thinking and social management in favor of the people. Fidel Castro was considered by many as a father, advisor, friend, and the voice that provided reassurance when the people needed confidence in their leadership against the challenges. Cultural gala to honor Commander Fidel Castro as a central tribute to the man who led the 1959 revolutionary movement to remove dictator Fulgencio Batista from power. Casa de las Américas will hold roundtables and debates on Fidel's legacy.
It was his wish that no school, hospital, or public work be named after him, or he didn't want monuments in his honor. He did not want his figure to become an object of worship. This is how the island looked and felt in the first days after his death.
Very bad. My neighbor called me, Idalmis, Fidel died. I couldn't believe it. I've been crying and crying. I can't sleep. I'm on pills. Today I had to send for medication, but I feel terrible because we were born with this revolution.
Those who knew him say that he was not afraid of criticism, nor he was dogmatic. He felt most comfortable among the people.
The part of Fidel that we need to rescue for upcoming battles, in my opinion, is not his candor, his humanism, his sensitivity towards people. All of that is important, but that is not where we should be placing our emphasis, because the context that is approaching is much more complicated, the disputes are much more complex. It seems to me that the Fidel most needed for the times we are living in Cuba and in Latin America is the most subversive, most radical Fidel.
He once said that the revolution would be a difficult and dangerous undertaking. However, those who were close to him assure us that he never knew of fear. 9 years after his death, this is how he lives on in the imagination of Cuban children.
His personality, his culture. He is cultured, he is good, kind.
But you speak of Fidel in the present tense, as if he were still alive. Why?
Because even though he is dead, to us he never died. Even if you don't believe it, Fidel is always by our side teaching us, and we are always learning things about him, even though he is no longer alive, but he is morally in the hearts of all children.
En diciembre de 2011 ingresó al libro Guinness de los Récords.
On December 2011, he entered the Guinness Book of World Records as the person who was most attempted to be assassinated. From 1959 to 2000, 638 times. He challenged no less than 10 U.S. presidents. They say he was a strategist like few others in the history of humanity. Hated by some and venerated by others. What many agree on is that he was an irremediable dreamer who was definitely victorious.
Fabiola López, teleSUR, La Habana.
Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel marked the date by highlighting the continuing relevance of Fidel Castro's legacy. Through a post on his X account, Díaz-Canel stated, "Fidel lives among us. Anyone who doubts this should read, watch, or listen to how much the Commander-in-Chief of the Cuban Revolution continues to speak to us through the immortality of his ideas and the strength of his legacy, which continues to challenge us every day." And Nicaragua inaugurated a natural science museum in honor of Commander Fidel Castro to commemorate the 9th anniversary of his passing. The Casimiro Sotelo Montenegro University in the city of Managua made this new museum available to students to promote scientific and environmental interests as part of the legacy of Commander Fidel Castro. Students gather at this institution of higher learning to honor the memory of the Cuban leader, admiring his critical and revolutionary thinking, his commitment to causes around the world, and to the most vulnerable peoples. In this scenario, university teachers and students place flowers as a sign of their loyalty to Fidel Castro's ideas and his faithful defense of the anti-imperialist struggle, peace, and solidarity among nations. In other news, Venezuela rejects the designation of the non-existent Cartel de los Soles as a terrorist organization by the U.S. State Department to justify a legitimate and illegal intervention against the country. The Venezuelan government has confirmed that this is an attempt at regime change, reaffirming that the country's popular military and police forces will protect the peace and the highest interests of the Bolivarian Revolution. The government also emphasized that the Venezuelan people are united and focused on national life. Authorities added that these actions by the White House seek to divert attention from domestic issues and generate instability, and urge the U.S. administration to rectify what they consider to be an erratic policy of aggression. The Venezuelan government also stated that these measures affect the development of Caribbean peoples and do not contribute to a genuine fight against the illicit drug trade. And Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro expressed his gratitude for international support in defense of the right to peace in Venezuela and throughout Latin America in the face of escalating imperialist aggression by the United States. During his television program Con Maduro Más, President Nicolás Maduro thanked the thousands of Christian churches in the United States that have expressed their solidarity with Venezuela, defending its right to peace and rejecting Washington's imperialist aggressions. In this sense, he also applauded the resistance and commitment of the entire Venezuelan people who have succeeded in overcoming all the threats and aggressions of U.S. imperialism. In this context, President Nicolás Maduro referred to the constant threats facing Venezuela and made it clear that there are laws responsible for maintaining peace.
No van a mentir. ¿Hasta cuándo van a conspirar?
How long are they going to lie? How long are they going to conspire? No psychological warfare will stop Venezuela. We defeated them in psychological warfare and in economic warfare. Venezuela is moving forward. I can tell you that there are laws for those who overstep their bounds. Those who understand, understand. Minister of Transportation already knows. It's up to you, Minister. Those who overstep their bounds are dealt with according to the law, which guarantees stability.
La ley. Que la ley garantice la luz.
In Trinidad and Tobago, several sectors labeled the government's proposal to introduce laws targeting social media bloggers deemed to be threats to national security as unacceptable, undemocratic, and hostile to the principle of freedom of expression. In a statement signed by opposition leader Penelope Beckles, the People's National Government strongly condemned this attempt to weaponize state power against private citizens exercising their constitutional rights, adding that any government that fears criticism has abandoned its commitment to democratic values. Meanwhile, former National Security Minister Stuart Young said he was alarmed by the positions being articulated by Homeland Security Minister Roger Alexander, saying that the nation is experiencing a live and developing threat to democracy. For his part, Movement for Social Justice leader David Atbullah also expressed that the statements made by the Homeland Security Minister are totally unacceptable. We have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Honduras, the electoral silence period began, a time designated for citizens to meditate before voting in the general elections on Sunday, November 30th. The election campaign of the parties competing for the leadership of the nation for the next 4 years has come to an end, giving way to 5 days in which more than 6 million registered voters are called to consider their vote. The regulation marks the end of mass rallies and prohibits all forms of propaganda in the streets, as well as on the radio, television, digital media. According to the National Electoral Council, failure to comply with this law would result in penalties of up to 50 minimum wages for violators. And in Peru, negotiations between small-scale miners and Congress stalled after the legislative plenary postponed a crucial vote to extend their work permits. Nearly 1,000 informal mining workers traveled from various parts of the country to march in Lima, pressuring and demanding the extension of their permits to continue operating in certain mines. In response, Peruvian delegates discussed the possibility of extending the temporary permit until the end of 2027 and reinstating 50,000 miners who had previously been declared illegal. These permits for artisanal miners were last issued in 2016, and although they have been extended on several occasions, they require new approval by the plenary. And the Uruguayan Workers' Union presented a proposal for the creation of a specific tax on the wealth of the richest 1% of the country to be used for policies to combat child poverty. The tax targets approximately 25,000 people with assets exceeding $1 million. It is estimated that this surtax would raise over $22 million every year, a figure equivalent to 1% of the gross domestic product. The vice president of the union, Carolina Spillman, explained that 17% of the country lives below the poverty line. Spillman added that the working class knows that inequality does not correct itself but requires political courage, redistributive mechanisms, and real public investment that reaches the poorest households. In the United States, a line of severe storms in Harris County, Texas, damaged homes, cut power to thousands, and triggered tornado warnings on Monday. Aerial footage from NBC 13 shows significant damage to a number of homes along with scattered debris. The station said severe winds and an isolated tornado continued to be possible into the evening. The evening forecasters warned of flooding rain and the possibility of severe thunderstorms Monday from Texas to Arkansas and Louisiana into Mississippi. By Monday evening, more than 1,000 flights into and out of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport were delayed and over 100 canceled, according to the flight tracking site FlightAware. And the highly Gubi volcano located in northeast Ethiopia erupted for several hours for the first time in almost 12,000 years. The volcano, which spouted thick columns of smoke, is located about 800 kilometers northeast of Addis Ababa, the capital, leaving the nearby village of Aftera covered in ash. The columns of smoke covered Yemen, Oman, India, and northern Pakistan. Authorities did not report any victims caused by the eruption. However, the eruption could have economic consequences for the livestock herders who live in the area. To date, the Afar authorities have not declared the number of people displaced. And in Vietnam, concern is growing over devastating floods that have already left more than 90 dead and caused enormous economic losses. Our correspondent in China, Bruno Folsi, has the details.
Hello to the companions of teleSUR and the audience watching us in this transmission. I am in Beijing now to report that torrential rains in central Vietnam have left 91 people dead and 11 missing, in addition to more than 235,000 flooded homes. This according to official reports. The region, a major producer of coffee and rice, faces estimated economic loss of $380 million. Local authorities have deployed helicopters and rescue teams to deliver food, water, and clothing to the worst affected areas, while hospitals are working to treat injuries and prevent disease outbreaks. Recent satellite images show that several rivers remain at critical levels, with a risk of further flooding in the hardest hit areas of central Vietnam. Experts warn that extreme events like this reflect the region's growing vulnerability to intense weather phenomena like the global warming. With this news, we will return with you in the studios in La Habana, Cuba.
We have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on our world's most recent events. Have a final break and go away. Welcome back. Israeli forces killed at least 4 Palestinians and wounded several others across Gaza despite a 6-week ceasefire that Israel has violated with near daily attacks. Israel violated the ceasefire agreement at least 393 times from October 10th to November 20th throughout the continuation of attacks by air, artillery, and direct shootings. Israel shot at civilians 113 times, raided presidential areas beyond the yellow line 17 times, bombed and shelled Gaza 174 times, and demolished people's properties on 85 occasions. Israel had also detained 35 Palestinians from Gaza over the past month. Monday attacks include artillery, air raids, and helicopter strikes reported in both northern and southern parts of the enclave. And Israeli settlers in the West Bank have shown alarming public support for extrajudicial killings, collective punishment, and the use of human shields by the Tel Aviv government, which violate international humanitarian law. According to a recent survey by the Israel Democracy Institute, 600 Jewish Israeli settlers revealed entrenched militaristic views amid the ongoing assault on Gaza and intensified aggression, ethnic cleansing, and forced displacement across the West Bank. The poll shows that 62% of Jewish Israeli settlers believe that Palestinian fighters should be killed even if they pose no threat. Over 55% of respondents supported the use of heavy firepower on Palestinian population centers following rocket attacks, indicating broad public support for war crimes. In Angola, the 7th annual European Union-African Union Summit began under the slogan promoting peace and prosperity through effective multilateralism. The event, which takes place over 2 days, celebrates 50 years of independence from Angola and other African countries, as well as 25 years of cooperation between the European Union and the African Union. The summit will look at priority issues for both sides, especially on peace, security, development, migration, and governance. Although the European Union is historically Africa's most important trading partner, relations have recently been strained due to the increasing influence and power of global third parties such as the United States, China, and Russia. And on Monday, in the United Arab Emirates, U.S. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll met with Russian representatives to discuss the crisis in Ukraine. During the dialogue held in Abu Dhabi, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov emphasized that Russia is fully open to the negotiation process, as has been repeatedly confirmed by President Vladimir Putin. Negotiations will continue throughout the day. In this regard, Dan Driscoll stated that he plans to meet with the Russian delegation to discuss the peace process and accelerate negotiations. In this negotiating context, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated at a press conference in Moscow that any revised peace plan for Ukraine must reflect the agreement reached by Putin and Trump at their summit in Alaska. Three major Belgian unions called a coordinated national strike on Monday to protest government budget cuts. The work stoppages, primarily affecting rail and air services, have forced the cancellation of numerous flights at major airports. The protest is a direct response to the austerity measures proposed by the government, including the unpopular initiative to raise the legal retirement age. Transport unions are standing firm in their fight against the budget cuts, using the shutdown of key sectors to pressure the government to reconsider its economic policies. Airlines have been tasked with contacting affected passengers directly in the coming days to inform them of their options. With this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.